What does it take to bring down a hive city? For the Tyranids, the answer is always more biomass. In the context of a planetary invasion, this is nothing new. Progress has always been achieved through the expenditure of enough biomass to drown the entire place in blood. But the Hive Mind is no dumb brute. It knows well the balance sheet of such attritional warfare and is capable of leveraging evolutionary adaptation to ensure the right tool is being used in the right place at the right time to tip the odds in its favor. Thus, as the Imperial defenders have been forced back to make a final stand atop their Hive City, the Tyranids must prepare to face a new set of challenges. Massive walls, huge weapon batteries, and void shields all make a direct assault suicidal. First, the position must be undermined by the taking of its surrounding outskirts. Here, the urban landscape is defined by sprawling plazas, dense industrial zones, long avenues, and more. Against these, the largest of the Hive Mind's arsenal must be brought to bear. Now we will witness the deployment of titanic creatures such as the Tyrannofex, the Hierophant, and the Dimachaeron. Each will have a critical role to play in this fifth wave of the Tyranid invasion.
So I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode on the Tyranids. I know we've raised the bar even higher, and it's been a blast to produce. Now if you're here, it probably means that you're a nerd just like me, and you can't get enough of playing with the Nids or playing out in space with giant galactic species. And that brings us to today's sponsor, Stellaris. Stellaris is a great 4X strategy game where you can build your own civilization across a vast universe. You get to explore strange new worlds, meet alien races, and build a sprawling civilization. The game has the huge amount of depth and customization you can expect from a Paradox title that's been around for almost a decade. Now for Tyranids fans, awesome news is that the latest DLC, Biogenesis, actually brings evolution to the forefront of the stellar landscape. Living ships, engineered ecosystems, and many new features and overhauls now make it possible to roleplay as the Tyranids. It's been a ton of fun actually setting up my own hive fleet in the Civilization Creator and letting my tendrils spread across the galaxy. Now while I'm still in the early game, I know the mid and late game has some insane potential for planetary invasions and system-wide consumption of biomass. For us Nids lovers, the new Behemoth Crisis is actually really fun, as it lets you create a super organism capable of unleashing devastating abilities and even consuming entire planets. Biogenesis is out now, so check it out by going to play.stellaris.com/Invicta or click the link in the description below. Enjoy!
Hardly more than a week has passed since the first wave of Tyranid Assault bioforms began to rain down upon a fringe Imperial world. Thus far, the tide of horrors has engulfed all in its path. From remote outposts to entrenched battle lines and toxic wastelands. None have proven more than a road bump to the swarm. Even the unleashing of nuclear arsenals has done little to abate their advance. At every step of the way, the scale, adaptability, and coordination of the Hive Mind's armies has allowed it to crack open defenses at an alarming pace. With each bursting of the dams have come torrents of death and despair. Now the Imperial forces have rallied upon the last bastions of defense, the Hive Cities. From within these last beacons of hope will be fought the final battles for the fate of the planet. capturing the global scale of this climactic chapter of the invasion will be impossible. Instead, we shall have to restrict our focus to the area of operations around one particular location. The young Hive City, Penitent Spire. Here we see the central sector of this imperial territory has been engulfed on all sides, with only a few pockets of resistance yet standing amidst a flood of encroaching bioforms. Across the region, the enemy has been stripping the land of resources and amassing its forces for the next phase of the invasion, a massive siege. To better understand the landscape of the coming conflict, we can zoom in to the vicinity of the Hive City. Though our specimen is on the smaller end of such structures, it nonetheless boasts the typical features one would expect. For instance, here we see that the Hive City consists of a roughly circular spire, constructed from a series of concentric tiers. Each level has been built one on top of the other, with the various strata of this man-made mountain roughly aligning with the population's socio-economic hierarchy. Radiating out from the center are major roadways, rail lines, and infrastructure networks, which once connected this hub to its surroundings. Along these routes have grown a dense web of outskirts, which supports all manner of habitation, production, storage, and logistics buildings. In terms of defense, the sheer scale of this urban center makes it a formidable target. The outskirts are a vast urban jungle featuring dispersed garrisons, artillery positions, and anti-air platforms meant to keep the enemy at bay. The Hive City proper, meanwhile, is guarded by massive bastion walls studded with all manner of fortified weapon batteries and manned by legions of troops. In our case, the upper reaches of the spire are further protected by anti-air cannons, fighter launch pads, and a mighty void shield. Altogether, such defenses have prevented the enemy from immediately taking the city by storm. For now, the only real danger from the skies has been the precipitation of shattered drop pods and vaporized biomass. Thus, Imperial commanders have been focusing their efforts on the inevitability of a coming ground assault. To this end, large detachments of the remaining Guard and planetary defense forces have been dispersed across outskirts of the city. We can review their order of battle now. Once more, we will have to restrict our scope to an indicative slice of the battlefield. In this case, the southern quadrant of the Hive City outskirts. Here, the Imperial forces have deployed across the urban landscape, entrenching themselves across key areas of control. While the main Tyranid invasion force is still miles away, the enemy's presence can still be felt. Across the landscape, many structures have suffered damage from the earthquakes which accompanied the Tyranids' first arrival in the system, on account of their gravity-warping means of faster-than-light travel. Chaos and panic have gripped the streets. Martial law and massive troop mobilizations now attempt to re-establish control before the enemy arrives. Anchoring the defences is the headquarters group and its reserves. These have taken position around the local administrative block. Here, a pair of ancient cathedrals once served as the crowning jewels of a long imperial parade ground. Now, however, the grand buildings have been co-opted as command centres. Within are the colonel, his HQ staff, and many support technicians, meant to serve as the administrative brains of the regiment and its attached elements. It is they who will be coordinating the local defences. A company of shock troops stands guard nearby, with the support of basilisk artillery and motorised units for rapid redeployment. Meanwhile, the processional courtyard has been retrofitted to house rows of Hydra gun platforms. These provide dedicated aerial cover for the defence forces. Approaches to and from this HQ are controlled by patrols and checkpoints. Zooming back out, we can note a few other major defensive positions. To the southwest is a large plaza. During the opening stages of the invasion, it once served as a vehicle depot and emergency field hospital. Now, however, these men and material have long since been exhausted or evacuated. In their place has been installed a hastily erected line of fortifications and armoured units. At the centre of the plaza stands a source of supreme power and reverence, a Baneblade. Over 13 metres long and 8 metres wide, this super-heavy tank boasts a turret-mounted mega battle cannon, a coaxial autocannon, a hull-mounted demolisher cannon, 3 sets of paired heavy bolters, and 2 flanking las cannon turrets. Thus armed, it is capable of taking on waves of infantry and enemy armour. For now, the Baneblade's crew keeps a vigilant eye on all approaches to the plaza. At a moment's notice, they will be prepared to unleash hell. Elsewhere, the major roads have also been reinforced by minefields, barricades, and armoured units. Along these arterial roads, open sightlines make for excellent killing fields for the tanks positioned along such routes. While Baneblades are too rare to make an appearance here, squadrons of Leman Russ tanks make up for any deficit in firepower through sheer numbers. Positions are often self-reinforcing, with the idea that when any one line falters, its defenders can set off pre-buried charges to cover their retreat to the next rallying point. Minor roads and small alleys prove less conducive to the same type of defensive arrangement. Instead, Command has seen fit to deploy loaded chimeras to each zone and allow the infantry squads to best secure the position as they see fit. Machine gunners seek high ground, flamers cover choke points, and riflemen fill in the gaps. The industrial districts of the south are particularly prone to this sort of amorphous urban battle line. Here, the infantry and sentries have claimed warehouses and factories as their battlements, transforming them into ready-made bunkers. Wherever buildings hold a commanding view of the surroundings, one is sure to find teams of snipers and machine gunners readying their nests. Amidst all this military activity, evacuations are still taking place across the city outskirts. This is especially the case in the dense HAB block units of the northeast. Here, klaxons and automated messages have been sounding for hours, ordering all non-military personnel to follow the evacuation routes towards the Hive City. But the process is painfully slow, and troops stationed within this area must do double duty as guards and evictors. A sudden uptick in the tempo of artillery and flak cannons, however, changes the mood. The enemy is here. To the troops on the bleeding edges of the outskirts, the danger has always been there. Since the start of the invasion, they have been in a near-constant fight against Tyranid advance forces and emerging vanguard troops. Now, however, just as had occurred along the front lines. A sudden receding of the enemy is observed. The Hive tyrants are taking charge. This is the deceptive receding of the waters before the tsunami. Then, all of a sudden, it hits. A wall of screeching biomass floods into the city across all fronts. Crawling over the rockcrete and ground cars come hundreds of thousands of gaunts backed by warriors, Carnifexes, Raveners, and the rest of Damnation's bestiary. Soon, the wave of chitin hits the first of the Imperium's dams. The lines erupt in fire. Tanks, turrets, heavy weapons, and lasguns unleash upon the swarm. The shots find their mark, but one hardly has a chance to notice as a fresh bioform takes the place of the fallen. For now, though, the rate of killing is at least the equivalent to the rate of replacement. The tsunami appears frozen in place. The line is holding, in great part thanks to the range advantage of the defenders. But the Great Devourer has an answer for that. The Tyrannofex is a monstrous beast, more than double the size of a Carnifex and many times that of a gaunt. It stands about 7 to 8 meters in height. 4 legs support this gigantic body, which is covered in dozens of layers of ablative chitinous armor. This alone turns the Tyrannofex into the equivalent of a heavy armored vehicle. Yet it is the massive biocannon fused to its body which transforms this creature into the equivalent of a full-on battle tank. The main weapon comes in several variants. Most common is the rupture cannon, a dual projectile mechanism whose first salvo launches a tick-like organism which bursts upon impact, coating its target in an oil-like substance. When the second salvo hits, the impact of its shell triggers a biochemical reaction which causes a massive implosion, powerful enough to destroy even armored vehicles. Other weapons, such as the acid spray and flesh borer variants, unleash their own special hell upon light vehicles and infantry targets. All in all, it is a slow-moving but heavy-hitting support piece which follows close behind frontline forces. Unfortunately for the Imperial defenders, the Tyrannofexes have now lumbered into position. The first to face this new threat is the 18th Tank Squadron, stationed at the intersection of 2 major avenues. Thus far, they have maintained a lock on the position, bullying the waves of minor bioforms that have attempted to breach the position. However, it is now that one of the tank observers spots a new silhouette at the far end of his firing line. A pair of Tyrannofexes has rounded the corner. Under normal circumstances, the extreme distance would be to the defender's advantage. But the massive bioweapons of the Tyrannofex are in a class of their own. The creature takes aim. 2 successive shots of the rupture cannon are unleashed. These fly across the battlefield. In a 1-2 punch, the lead tank goes up in flames. The tanks switch on to these high-priority targets with counter-battery fire. However, the Tyrannofexes are extremely robust. Even if their armor is penetrated, it has been reported that decapitated beasts can continue fighting on as their weapon symbiotes take over control of the main body. In this fight, the Tyrannofex has the advantage. A quick succession of shots pummels the Leman Rust vehicles, whose crews and mechanisms have no such operational redundancy. With the tanks destroyed, the line falls, and the swarm now moves on to the next major choke point. But while the Tyrannofex may prove capable of leveling the playing field in long-range firefights, it proves far less impactful in the tight confines of small streets. But once more, Tyranid evolution proves adaptable to such a problem. A close relative of the Tyrannofex is the Tervigon. Its frame is defined by the same formidable torso and powerful legs. However, in place of its brethren's bioweapon comes a pair of forelimbs capable of slicing through infantry and tearing open armor. Thus, it is capable of charging into close combat in the manner of a Carnifex. But where it differs in role is that the Tervigon is more akin to an armored personnel carrier. Within its central carapace is an incubator capable of spawning dormant broods of termagants. In most cases, such birthing sacs will be used as a form of forward troop deployment system just behind the front lines. However, they can also be used to directly insert troops into the thick of combat or into breaches in fortifications. Within the context of our ongoing assault, the Tervigons can be seen moving forward in the wake of the Tyrannofexes. From here, they will either support the main advance or peel off to overrun the minor routes which crisscross the city outskirts. When a defended structure is reached, the armor of the Tervigons allows them to make an approach while shrugging off most small arms fire. At this point, termagants can safely be unleashed to charge through the smaller entrances of the building. If access still proves difficult, the Tervigon can literally breach and clear its target by tearing down obstacles which stand in the way. This method of assault proves vital to the Tyranid offensive within the industrial district. Here, the killing fields between fortified factories have thus far proven difficult to overcome. With the added weight of the Tervigons, the defenders are pressed to hold fast at their positions. To make matters worse, aerial bioforms now make their way into the skies over the city outskirts. Thus, assaulted from all sides, the Imperial positions across the front are wavering. Yet, this was always an expected eventuality. Guard units have already begun a tactical retreat to the interior fallback points. Key to this secondary battle line is the southwest plaza. Here, the mighty Baneblade reigns supreme. Wave after wave of enemy has washed upon this Imperial rock, but to no avail. In all directions, it unleashes the Emperor's wrath. The morale of the troops benefits greatly from its presence. Together, their firepower helps keep the enemy at bay. Eventually, the enemy's tanks, the Tyrannofexes, attempt to bring their own firepower to bear. However, observation networks are quick to relay the enemy's position to the Baneblade. In short order, its crew wheels the main turret about. With ease, the main battle cannon dispatches any Tyrannofex which enters the battlefield. This tank beats everything. For now, the constant thudding of flak cannons, the chatter of bolters, and the crackle of las guns is proof that humanity stands a fighting chance. It is at this point that the Hive Mind will be forced to deploy its most formidable of weapons, the Bio-Titans. Among the largest of the Bio-Titans is the Hierophant. This creature is simply gargantuan. dwarfing even a Tyrannofex. The Hierophant's long legs suspend its body at a height of around 15 meters when walking, and even higher when perched. From this vantage point, it towers over the battlefield, wielding a pair of enormous bio-cannons. Each gun's symbiote is as large as a Tyranid warrior. They are triggered by a massive electrochemical shock that spews forth a hail of highly venomous and corrosive organisms, which erupt in a raid of bioacid and poison capable of melting through nearly any material in a matter of seconds. At close range, the Hierophant relies on jaws, claws, and a spiked tail as secondary weapons. For defense, it relies on thick, armored plates of chitin. Under the more vulnerable belly, spiny tendrils may be extended to lash out at the enemies which stray too close. Other deterrents include poisonous sacs, which can be triggered to excrete lethal clouds of gas. Some of the more powerful Hierophant species are even reported to be able to wield their psychic abilities to produce a warp shield and more rapidly regrow damaged tissue. All this makes for a devastatingly powerful creature, whose presence on the battlefield is made all the more terrifying by the fact that they are often deployed in broods of 3 or more creatures. Just as the Tyranid Assault forces have seemingly reached a high watermark in their penetration of the Hive City outskirts, the Hierophants will make their arrival. Upon great spindly legs, they now clamber over the mounds of rockcrete which once made up this metropolis. A chilling roar hearkens their arrival. Hierophant broods will make their way across the major avenues of the city. As they advance, their scale is made clear in the backdrop of ruined ground cars and shattered buildings. Passage across these cleared highways is easy, but their great strides make it possible for the monsters to clamber over most conventional impediments. Thus are the broods able to close in around the major areas of resistance. Along the way, they will be accompanied by swarms of gargoyles and harpies who provide aerial support while in transit. The Hierophant is more than capable of knocking out targets which were too hardened for its lesser brethren. This fact proves deadly for the remaining defenders holding out in the industrial district. The brood, which now converges on their position, makes short work of their urban fortifications. Elsewhere, the Hierophants apply great pressure on the Imperial lines, either breaking through themselves or drawing enough attention to allow the rest of the swarm to close in for the kill. But the true test will come at the linchpin of the defences, where the Baneblade is located. Here, the defenders have continued to hold out against waves of the enemy. As a brood of Hierophants approaches, Central Command has made sure to track these threats and coordinate with its available ground and air forces to counter the threat. The Baneblade has been given the all-clear to engage with this new enemy as the highest priority target. The vehicle takes aim. From a distance, the nimble Hierophant is able to make its own assessment of the situation and takes cover. As an additional countermeasure, it also deploys a screen of gas. This ruse is of marginal use against the optics of the Baneblade, and the surveillance of its supporting observation units. The brood now separates to attempt to catch the Baneblade from a more vulnerable line of fire. A deadly game of cat and mouse is underway. But the Hierophant is not the only bio-titan on the prowl. This is the Dimachaeron. It is another titanic bioform, larger than a Tyrannofex and roughly 3/4 as tall as a Hierophant when fully extended. But while the former two creatures may have evolved to take on prey in more traditional battles, the Dimachaeron serves an entirely different role. It has but a single purpose: to slaughter strategic targets. And while lictors may achieve similar objectives through stealth, the Dimachaeron forgoes all subtlety through pursuing its goals through sheer brutality and animalistic rage. With massive blade arms and propelled by powerful limbs, it carves a gore-soaked trail of carnage in a single-minded search of its prey. A most terrifying aspect of the Dimachaeron's physiology is its hinged thorax. Any victims caught by the beast are rapidly engulfed and consumed within this chamber. Their nutrients are rapidly absorbed by the biotitan, allowing it to feast and heal at an alarming rapidity on its warpath. While the rest of the Tyranid invasion force carries out its city-wide assault, the Dimachaeron arrives to carry out a decapitation strike against the Imperial headquarters. As it enters the battlefield, the Hive Mind consciousness of the swarm can be focused to endow the killer with a shockingly detailed understanding of the foe's position and the best route to take. Thus, locked in, this organic, heat-seeking missile is unleashed. With incredible speed, it plunges into the city. Great strides carry it over open ground and send it bounding across buildings. Defenders hardly get a chance to catch a glimpse of, let alone land a shot on the Dimachaeron. Within just a few minutes, it crosses kilometers of the battlefield, coming ever closer to Imperial headquarters. Without pausing to engage any other targets, the beast simply bypasses or shrugs off the attempts of any who attempt to stop it. Across the defensive communication networks, chaotic chatter attempts to make sense of this new threat. But long before any response can be coordinated, the Dimachaeron has reached the administrative block. In one powerful leap, it now clears the final hurdle. Amidst the cacophony of anti-air rounds, the guard units can be heard attempting to train their fire upon the intruder. 100 meters away, the checkpoint is but paper to this unstoppable force. Hooves crush limbs, scythes split bodies, and muscle topples vehicles. 50 meters. More shots concentrate on the target. It's hit, but not slowing down. Within the blink of an eye, the Dimachaeron is upon the commander. A curse barely has time to reach the tip of his tongue before his entire body is impaled through the church doors. The inner sanctum is now breached. The rest of the command staff are but sheep to the slaughter. While the combined might of the guard units is eventually enough to take down the Dimachaeron, it has successfully crippled the command and control of the enemy's hierarchy. This moment of paralysis ripples across the battlefield. For the Baneblade engaged in a standoff against a brood of Hierophants, the timing could not be worse. Without the coordination from command, the tank crew is effectively blind. Onboard systems try their best to analyze the gas clouds which surround them, but the threats are coming from everywhere now. And the Baneblade is alone. At long last, the hunter has its prey. The loss of command, coupled with the fall of the Baneblade, is enough to strategically and psychologically break the Imperial Guard. The regiment of the southern outskirts has fallen. The Hive Mind now overruns the position. All in their path is consumed, and the last buffer between the Tyranids and the Hive City walls evaporates. Join us next time as we take the fight into the Hive City. For now, you can head on over to our Patreon and YouTube membership to get HD downloads of all our art, catch script previews, and participate in polls. A big thanks to the current members for supporting the channel and to the researchers, writers, and artists for making this episode possible. We couldn't have done it without this team and this community. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like and subscribe for more content and check out these other related videos. See you in the next one.